Entangled in a web of deceit, I never anticipated that my own sanctuary would transform into a stage for betrayal. Letty, the object of my affection, harbored secrets involving another man, Teague. A seemingly innocent wager unfurled the truth, a gamble on love with me as the unsuspecting pawn. Now, as the puzzle pieces align, my pursuit is not solely for truth, but for retribution. This is my narrative. Enjoy the spectacle. My beloved wife, Letty, sat captive in the kitchen, confined to a chair. Her turmoil mirrored my own, and regret shadowed my actions as I secured her there. In her desperation to flee, I reacted rashly, concealing the keys beyond her reach. I find solace in my resolution. Tears mar her once flawless makeup, a stain of vomit marring the fabric of her elegant black dress as she stands near the sink. Upon my unexpected return, I detected the scent of alcohol mingled with bile, evidence of Letty's distress. Her shock and anguish drove her swiftly to the bathroom, where she succumbed to illness. It was a pitiful sight. She had purportedly embarked on a journey to a trade event in Atlanta that very morning, with no plans to return until late Sunday. She bid me farewell at 7 a.m. and departed mid-morning for the 4-hour drive to Atlanta. Outside my store, chaos ensued as a semi-trailer veered off course, colliding with an electricity pole and triggering a blackout. The absence of windows in my cinder-block gun shop compounded the discomfort on that sweltering day. For an hour, we endured the stifling darkness, my employees jesting about hazard pay, though their humor was laced with sincerity. As we awaited the arrival of the co-op's electrician crew, Letty's cheerful voice pierced through the chaos, informing me of her arrival in Atlanta and her activities at the convention. She promised nightly updates but urged against interruptions during her engagements. Shortly after the electric cooperative team arrived, the crew chief delivered unwelcome news: the incorrect pole had been dispatched, prolonging the outage by another 3 hours. With no power and no business to tend to, I granted my staff an impromptu day off and made my way home, yearning for a revitalizing shower. Imagine my astonishment upon entering the bedroom to find Letty awaiting me, adorned in the luxurious lingerie I had gifted her during our honeymoon, an ensemble of decadent allure, comprising a full-cup bra, garters, and a satin thong in a deep crimson hue. For 7 years, my wife has scarcely adorned the lingerie I gifted her. Oblivious to my presence, she struggled to fit into a snug black dress, her movements unsteady. A discerning whiff revealed traces of alcohol and anticipation in the air. On the dresser, an open bottle of Chardonnay stood, accompanied by a half-empty glass and a spilled puddle, suggesting a consumption beyond her usual limit. Her scent, reminiscent of freshly baked peach pie, tantalized my senses, signaling her inebriation and arousal. Despite my initial excitement at the prospect of an intimate evening, reality shattered the illusion as I recalled Letty's supposed absence in Atlanta. It dawned on me that she was preparing for someone else's company, someone local. As her dress descended, revealing her face, her reaction to my presence was unforgettable. She stammered an apology before rushing to the restroom, where she emptied the contents of her stomach, including the Chardonnay and her lunch. Even amidst the turmoil, her elegant form in the tight dress captivated me, reminiscent of the allure that surely drew Bowden Teague's attention. Teague, the frosty marketing director of the company, crossed paths with Letty, who worked in auto parts manufacturing, during a trade show. His practice of employing attractive women to boost booth traffic stirred controversy within the company, leading to repercussions from HR and legal departments. Despite Mr. Cup's leniency, Teague was mandated to employ only full-time staff at the stand, prompting him to recruit office workers as volunteers, covertly compensating them handsomely for their services. The irony lay in Letty's role as an accountant, where her month-long toil paled in comparison to the weekend earnings at the exhibition, an intriguing reflection of supply and demand dynamics. It frustrated me that Letty had to work, but financial necessity dictated it. My late father, once wealthy, eschewed trust funds, believing in instilling the value of hard-earned money. He mandated that each of his children start their own ventures and sustain themselves until the age of 30 to inherit their share of the family trust. My elder siblings, a few years my senior, embraced this challenge, affirming its value for future generations. As the youngest among my siblings, I had 2 years left to meet this requirement. Letty and I relied on her income and the modest earnings from my gun store. Despite the perception of owning a gun store being lucrative in rural Georgia, it was more of a hobby passed down from my Uncle Kevin, who had suffered a stroke. Taking over the store after his illness spared me from establishing a new business during a tough economic climate, albeit with limited growth prospects. 7 years into running the store, amidst economic challenges and the unpredictability of CO, I remained optimistic about its potential with some investment. However, obtaining a loan proved futile due to insufficient collateral and the risk-averse nature of financial institutions, particularly regarding firearm sales. Letty's employment as a full-time accountant at the only sizable company in the area provided stability but little room for career advancement. Her income, combined with mine, barely sustained us, though we fared better than many in our community. We adjusted to life setbacks, tightening our belts when necessary. Cash payments from exhibitions significantly improved our financial situation, prompting Letty to accept Bowden Teague's offers without hesitation. Cleaning up her vomit at home in silence underscored the unspoken tension as Letty grappled with explaining her attire intended for someone else's company. I've never trusted my ability to rein in my temper. Typically, I'm slow to anger, but when provoked, I struggle to maintain composure. Today was one of those rare instances where self-control eluded me. Over the years, I've come to understand that preventing an outburst is far easier than regaining control once it's lost, and it's a skill I've been diligently honing. After cleaning up, I hoped for a calm discussion in the living room. However, Letty insisted on leaving, claiming she was running late. Despite my inquiries, she remained tight-lipped and stubborn. Caught in her attempt to sneak out, my frustration boiled over. After a tense confrontation, I managed to calm down, albeit hoarse from shouting. While my anger was rarely physical, Letty was understandably shaken. However, this outburst compelled her to stay and engage in conversation. Her tearful confession revealed her detestation for Bowden Teague, despite her need to interact with him professionally. His behavior towards other women in the office only fueled her disdain. Learning of his escapades and Mr. Cope's leniency towards him served as the catalyst for his wife's departure. Questioning Letty's motives led to a surprising revelation. My lost bet on a football game shed light on the situation. Letty's competitive nature, shaped by growing up with 4 older brothers, provided context to her actions, including her unexpected visit to Teague's place. In hindsight, it became evident that Letty's actions were not merely impulsive but driven by a deeper competitiveness ingrained since childhood. Letty, short for Violet, possesses a striking ability to verbally disarm those she dislikes. A proud Georgia alumnus, she occasionally indulges in risky bets on her beloved Bulldogs, despite her limited interest in sports. The conversation turned tense as she discussed a wager involving a vacation to the British Virgin Islands with Bowden. The stakes were high. If she won, they'd enjoy the trip together, but if Bowden won, she'd be at his disposal for a weekend, including intimate activities. Delicately probing further, I learned of the original bet's terms, including the consumption of illicit substances and intimate favors. Despite her discomfort, she reluctantly revealed the details, including her victory in a previous bet leading to the escalated stakes. Overwhelmed by the implications, I retreated to the terrace to gather my thoughts. Ultimately, I put an end to the bet and asserted our ownership over each other's bodies, prioritizing our mutual respect and dignity. You can't gamble with something that's not yours, just like I can't bet on my Uncle Kevin's farm, I reasoned with Leigh. She recounted instances where Bowden, attempting to impress her with Welsh phrases, had been publicly corrected by her. This fueled her belief that he sought revenge through their bets, which had amounted to 24 victories for her in the past 2 years, all based on predictable outcomes of sports matchups. I pointed out the recent loss, emphasizing the stakes, her commitment to me, and the use of illicit substances. I calmly explained the suspicious pattern of Bowden's bets, indicating that his recent victory might have been orchestrated. Despite the escalating rewards, including Target gift cards and a sudden offer of a Caribbean getaway, Leigh failed to see the manipulation until now. Pouring myself a drink, I confronted her with the possibility that Bowden's motivation was to salvage his prepaid vacation after his wife's departure. As realization dawned on her, I guided her to understand the gravity of the situation, urging her to consider the implications of agreeing to Bowden's demands for the weekend. Her initial naivety shifted to horror as she grasped the potential consequences, including the lack of birth control. I implored her to resign herself to the reality of the situation, emphasizing the gravity of her agreement and its potential ramifications. We are incredibly cautious about our actions and their timing. What if Bowden refuses to use protection? When was your last period? 2 weeks ago. Aren't you ovulating this weekend? What if he expects you to conceive his child? You can't allow that. Letty immediately started vomiting. I handed her the kitchen trash can, and she leaned over it, retching repeatedly, though nothing came out. Her expression betrayed her understanding of the situation. Tearfully, she admitted, "I've been foolish, Andy. I never intended for this. I never imagined he would stoop so low. I was so sure I'd win. I even planned what to take with me. I shouldn't have made the bet. And when I lost, I should have told you. I should have learned Welsh. What was I thinking?" Her sobs intensified. Tired, Lee. It's hard to believe, but my wife is a highly intelligent woman. She's a certified public accountant, graduated top of her class from Georgia. Mr. Cope called her the enchantress for her prowess in managing his finances. But growing up as the youngest and only girl among 7 siblings, protected fiercely by her tall, strong brothers and sheltered in a small village by her pastor father, she lacked exposure to the darker aspects of human nature. Her naivety, combined with her limited sexual experience, led her into this predicament. This was her first taste of high-stakes gambling, and we both know she's a thrill-seeker. I've always shielded her from harm since we started dating, but this time I wasn't there, and she got carried away. Her face was streaked with tears and mucus, and she seemed unable to wipe it herself. I gently cleaned her face with a damp towel, hoping to comfort her, but her sobbing only intensified. I banged the table, demanding her attention. "Letty, I need you to focus right now. Listen carefully," I urged. She composed herself, and I continued, "This calls for an immediate divorce. No hesitation. No excuses. Get the divorce proceedings started immediately. Do you understand? Do you realize how close I am to ending everything, especially after catching you trying to flee?" Letty nodded, her mouth pressed tight to suppress her tears. "I love you deeply, and I don't want to end our marriage, but you need to explain everything to me," I implored. When she remained silent, I bombarded her with questions. "Are you tired of me? Have I disappointed you? Are you angry with me? Am I not enough for you? How could you do this to us?" My voice cracked with pain, unable to contain the self-blame that consumed me. I was afraid my questions might trigger another bout of tears, but they seemed to provide relief instead. Letty responded with frustration, assuring me, "No, honey, this isn't about you at all. You're the best guy I've ever known. I'm completely satisfied with you, Andy, and I want to marry you. You're the one I need, only you." Observing her expression closely, I could tell she was being sincere. That's what made it so hard for me to grasp the situation. "It's awful," I replied. "I hope you're being honest. There's a lot of work to do before we can consider getting engaged." I reiterated my stance on infidelity. "It's just you and me. Once you cross that line with someone else, it's over between us. Do you understand?" Letty nodded, affirming she felt the same way. Before she could continue, my temper flared, and I interjected, hold on, don't say that. Have I ever given you a reason to doubt my loyalty?" She shook her head. "This was a major lapse in judgment on your part," I continued. "I've never had such lapses. You and I are not morally equivalent. I've never even come close to infidelity, but you, if I had come home half an hour later, you might have been on your way to becoming Teague's plaything. And if that ever happens, there's no stopping the divorce. I've never put you in the situation I'm in today." Pausing to rein in my emotions, I realized I was going in circles and starting to get angry. I collected myself and pressed forward. "Did anyone else witness your bet?" I inquired. "Was anyone else involved in planning this?" Letty shook her head. "Then he's the only one who knows you've broken your promise. Everyone else will think he's lying or exaggerating. And even if they know the truth, it won't matter. No one expects you to comply with his demands. If saying no makes you feel guilty, you'll have to deal with it. It's better to be a happily married promise breaker and live with the consequences than to face a miserable divorce. From Tig to Lay, enduring 10 times the disgrace. She sobbed, nodding in agreement. We're on the same page. Did you communicate with Tig? How did you plan this weekend? I probed. Letty explained, we spoke at the office. He tried messaging me on my phone, but I refused and blocked him. He gave me a phone at the office yesterday, but I never used it. Where is it? I asked. In my purse, she replied. Retrieving her purse from the closet floor, I found a cheap prepaid phone inside. Is he? She nodded. Scanning through the phone, I saw one test SMS and several recent incoming messages from Teague, wondering why she'd been absent for so long. Is there anything else you need to tell me that we haven't discussed yet? If I find out later that you're hiding something, it's over between us. Understand? She shook her head. That's all. You already know everything, she assured. Then we're good. Please, can I trust you now? Will you try to evade me again? No, she declared with a sudden change of heart, tinged with unexpected bitterness. I'm not going anywhere, Andy. You're my guy. I'll do whatever you say. I'm not leaving. Unlocking the door with silent prayers, she attempted to shower me with kisses. But at that moment, I couldn't bring myself to reciprocate. The traces of snot and the smell of vomit only fueled my anger. I was completely beside myself, but she was convincing. After a moment of holding my breath, I gently pushed her away and instructed her to go upstairs to shower and brush our teeth, emphasizing no contact with Teague under any circumstances. We need to get ready, she agreed. As she walked past me, I reached out to touch her arm, urging her to pause. Letty, I really like those panties on you. Would you mind doing me a favor and taking a selfie in front of the bathroom mirror wearing them? Will you do that for me? She smiled and nodded before heading off to get ready. I headed to Lonnie's Cookout, which was just half a mile from our place. I grabbed a couple of platters to go, fried chicken and pork with assorted sides, our favorite. It was still early for dinner, but I figured having some food might help. While I waited, my phone buzzed. Letty had sent me a selfie. She had tied her hair into a neat ponytail, freshened up her makeup exactly how I liked it. She knew exactly how to play me. The image took my breath away. The realization of how close we had come to disaster that evening filled me with barely contained anger. Tig owed me big time for this, and I was already thinking about how to collect without landing in jail. Then it struck me that if I involved Letty's brothers, I might not have to do anything myself. During dinner, I said to Lay, I understand how sensitive you are about your brothers teasing you. I'll do my best to keep this little incident between us. Neither of our families needs to know about this. Her expression showed deep gratitude. But we both agree that something needs to be done about Bowden Teague. What he did was predatory. If we do nothing, he'll just move on to someone else, someone who might not have our resources to defend themselves. We need to step up. We need to be the adults in the room, she nodded in agreement. I want him to face consequences for what he did, she declared. I asked you what justice means to you. I don't think he broke any laws with what he did to you. Let's look at what he did to lure you into his trap. It was awful, but not necessarily illegal. She paused for a moment before continuing, but we do have something to work with now. He's in a hotel room with illegal substances. That's definitely against the law and could get him arrested. To pull something like this off, we'll need to get Vicky or Little Joe involved, she groaned in apprehension. Well, Little Joe isn't afraid to bend the rules, and VK always plays by the book. I prefer VK because he's more likely to keep quiet. Plus, he's been wanting to borrow PA's antique ski boat for ages so he can take it out on some inflatable cheesecake rides. I can use that as leverage to buy his silence. Little Joe is more of a sure thing. He'll take care of Bowden, no matter the cost. I'll let you decide, she gathered her courage and said, VK is better. I also don't trust Little Joe to keep his mouth shut. I dialed VK's number, and he picked up on the first ring. Andy, how's everything with you and my beautiful sister? I replied, not doing so well, VK. Are you off duty today? Yeah, I'm off. What's up? Great, I'll need a big favor from you for this. I'll owe you big time. 20 minutes later, an SUV from the sheriff's department pulled up. Bring it into our driveway, VK, who had surpassed his older brother, the toughest of the four. VSS is the county's top deputy sheriff. In our state, there are various accountable parties. Sheriffs are elected officials who may lack prior law enforcement experience. The chief deputy sheriff is the highest-ranking law enforcement officer responsible for running the department effectively, while the sheriff deals with political matters and engages with the commissioner and the public. S serves as our county's chief deputy sheriff, and he does an excellent job. Unlike his predecessor, he commands the respect of minority communities. Old City residents expect VK to become the county sheriff for the next 20 years when the current sheriff retires. I briefed VK on what had happened with Leigh and Bowden. We need to save her from this embarrassment, I explained the situation. Initially amused by his sister's lack of judgment, VK's mood quickly shifted as I described the setup and the presence of illegal substances. He grew increasingly furious. When VK gets angry, he doesn't lose his composure like I do, his lips tighten and his eyes gleam. That's what makes him so formidable. I added, now this guy is holed up in room 223 with illegal substances. Can we search his room under some pretext? Maybe you could arrange for a K9 unit to sniff him out. VK said he had a few ideas and stepped outside to make some private phone calls from his SUV. He returned with a smile and announced, good news. An anonymous caller dialed 911 from the hotel's landline, reporting that he overheard a man in room 223 buying illegal drugs from a dealer. If the door is open when my team arrives, we'll have grounds for a legal search. Letty asked, can't you pretend to go there and ask him to leave the door open? For the past hour, Bowden Teague has been blowing up the hotline, leaving voicemails. He couldn't wait to hear from her. I handed her the phone and dialed his number. Imagine you're in the parking lot, hesitant to be seen. You're waiting in the lobby, so ask him to prop the door open for you. She sent a text. Teague didn't respond to the request but texted back, where have you disappeared to? Her phone buzzed. I cautioned her not to answer. If you start talking to him, he might catch on. Text him back, say, I arrived suddenly, and it took you a while to leave me. Teague replied, if you want the door open, you must be interested in me. Letty asked, what do I do? I had a realization as I looked at my phone. I responded by sending Letty a carefully cropped selfie in lingerie, showcasing from the top of her bra to the top of her stockings, and sent it to Lenny's phone via Bluetooth. Then, I asked Leigh to send him a text message, the close-up of her underwear revealing but not identifiable. This image triggered an immediate reaction from Bowden. He responded with a text message, best weekend ever. Moments later, he shared a photo from inside a hotel room with the door wide open. VK placed a call to kick things off before joining me in the living room. I sent Leigh upstairs for a few minutes under the guise of a pretense. Once she was gone, I appealed to VK to be gentle with Leigh. I know I already owe you a lot for this, but Leigh is incredibly sensitive to deceit. She's smart, but easily misled. I know you've had your eye on the yacht I inherited from my dad. If you keep this just between us, I'll give you 1 weekend a month for the rest of the year on the boat. You can pick which ones, and I'll even cover the costs. VK laughed and assured me, you don't owe me anything. You did what was necessary to protect my sister. This is just part of my job. Catching him is the least I can do. As for keeping secrets, I trust little Joe, but you know how he is with gossip. If he finds out what happened to Leigh, the whole neighborhood will know by noon tomorrow. He won't let her go through this alone, that's for sure. Trust me to handle this with discretion. I agreed and apologized for any potential fallout. He smiled and said, I still want to borrow your boat. Your dad's old ski boat will do for now. Maybe in June, when school's out, I can take the kids out for a gas trip on a weekday, my treat. We shook hands. While we waited, Letty came down to chat with her brother. Though Letty was eager to start a family, we decided to hold off until we had access to the trust fund. My sister-in-law was excited, but my brother preferred to wait. Both encouraged us to take our time. Letty loved looking after our many nieces and nephews. She bombarded VK with questions about his kids, especially Ann and Rascal, her favorites. Eventually, VK received a call. He chuckled a few times but didn't share anything significant. After a brief conversation, VK informed us that Bowden Teague had been arrested at the Garden and just minutes earlier on charges of drug possession with intent to distribute. They found a significant amount on him, along with empty bags and scales. That indicates intent to sell. He's likely looking at some serious prison time for this. Letty, stay away from illegal substances. They're not only highly addictive, but they also impair judgment. I struggled to maintain my composure as Letty comfortingly ran her hand down my back. VK continued with the details. The anonymous tip that led to Bowden's arrest wasn't particularly strong, but Bowden's own actions sealed his fate. He was smoking in his room when the sheriff arrived, prompting deputies to investigate. Upon finding the door open, they entered and encountered resistance from Teague, who attempted to push them out. In the ensuing scuffle, he dropped a bag of illegal narcotics in the hallway in front of 4 witnesses, including the hotel manager and a maintenance worker. Teague then became hostile and resisted arrest. The officer who apprehended him, Darnell Bips, was known to me as a regular customer in my store. Letty and I had never met him before. As VK continued, he explained that Bowden was 2 years ahead of me in school, and his father was a state legislator when he started college. He was known for bullying other kids. Darnell eventually got his revenge 15 years later. In exchange for his help, Darnell agreed to treat us to a steak dinner, which we found amusing. Darnell's father worked as a diesel mechanic, and the Bips family were decent people. VK assured us that Bowden would face severe consequences, especially given the district attorney's reputation for being tough on drug offenses. VK then turned to Letty and asked if there was anything on Bowden's phone that could embarrass her, to which she responded that the only thing of concern was the recent photo they had sent. VK assured her that it had been taken care of and that Darnell had ensured Bowden's phone was damaged during the incident. Letty then asked what would happen if Bowden claimed he was waiting for her in the room. VK explained that Bowden's credibility was already undermined by the drug charges, and his broken phone would prevent any tracking of his movements. Moreover, any attempt to complain about his damaged phone would only further incriminate him. Darnell examined Bowden's phone and discovered incriminating text messages from his dealer, providing further evidence against him. Teague is unlikely to draw attention to the phone. There's no indication that you ever had it. I'll dispose of it, and it'll be gone. Letty inquired, can't they trace the phone back to this house? VK explained, a determined investigator could gather records from the cell phone carrier and triangulate the device. In a big city, it might be pinpointed within a half to 1/4 mile radius. In rural areas with fewer towers, the search area could extend to an 8-mile radius. With 100 dwellings within that radius, it's not straightforward. If all else fails, I'll take charge of the investigation. He then added, there's something else you should know. They found high-end filming equipment in the room, undetectable cameras with excellent resolution. One was on the curtain rod, the other on the chest of drawers. The assistants would have missed them if they hadn't been looking. They were already operational when the assistants entered. Teague had illegal surveillance and blackmail equipment. You may have been framed. Don't worry, Letty, your family's wealth might have made you the intended target, not Andy. But what might Teague do to him? Letty's face paled as she realized you were carrying blackmail material. She fell silent. There's nothing to say. You nearly dodged a bullet because VK asked to speak with you alone. I stepped out, giving you the room. When he was leaving, I thanked him, but he dismissed it, saying families look out for each other here. Later, I asked Letty what VK had told her. He warned that if I ever treated her the way our mother treated us, I should leave town or face his wrath. It terrified me. I'd never seen him so angry. His mother, Loretta, left their father when Letty and her brothers were kids. She later became a lawyer. My father had many modest car businesses in South Georgia, and he had lawyers from an Augusta partnership working for him. One of them frequented the restaurant where Loretta worked. Despite our family not being wealthy, Loretta made a significant impact in her struggles. The lawyer was a charming man with impeccable conversation skills. He gradually charmed Loretta, convincing her to leave her family for him. He promised her a luxurious life in Augusta, assuring her that their children could join them in a year or two. This made Loretta's decision to leave her family easier. Her father, Roy, was shocked and lost his position in the church due to the scandal. PA was furious. The lawyer, his employee, was held personally accountable, and PA promptly fired him when the church deacons urged Roy to resign. PA then hired him as the sales manager for his Ford and Lincoln dealerships, significantly increasing his income compared to that of a preacher. PA supported Roy and issued a statement to the community, resulting in an unexpected outcome. It turned out to be PA's best business decision. Roy, known for his honesty and respect, sold many cars to the less fortunate and helped build Pennsylvania's corporate empire. Over the next 2 years, Pennsylvania and Roy became close friends, a ruthless businessman and a disgraced preacher. Roy was beloved by all, although he couldn't cook, and his children thought he could burn water. Moore was concerned about his children eating frozen dinners every night, so they became regulars at Sunday supper. Moore followed tradition and spent time teaching Letty to cook. Letty, longing for her mother's care and attention, bonded with Ma over their shared sense of humor, spending Sundays cooking and laughing together. It was during one of these moments, watching Letty knead cookie dough and share a joke with Ma, that I realized I was in love with her. My heart raced with joy as she winked and smiled at me, her flour-dusted nose adding to her charm. I was 15, and Letty was 14, blossoming into the most stunning sight I had ever beheld. The intensity of my feelings for her was unmatched. VK, perceptive as ever, was the first to notice. After that Sunday, he pulled me aside for a conversation. VK, for years my senior and towering over me, said, "I can see you're in love with Letty, Andy. It's written all over your face. My sister feels the same way about you, despite her attempts to hide it. Here's the deal, if you treat her right, I'll handle any interference from my father and brother. I trust you to take care of her. Don't let me down, Andy." His generosity struck me deeply then, and I later realized VK's unwavering support knew no bounds. My parents led our family with dignity and respect, with PA and Ma assisting when needed. VK, understanding the stakes, was shrewd enough to grasp the implications for his family. PA, fueled by vengeance, spared no expense in seeking justice against the lawyer who led Loretta astray. The top investigators were hired, gathering damning evidence that dismantled the lawyer's life piece by piece. In 3 months, he lost everything: cases, partnerships, license, fortune, and home. Roy later visited our house, quoting Proverbs 21 verse 15 about justice bringing joy to the righteous and fear to the evildoers. PA brushed it off, citing the unity of families in our community. Months after Teague's arrest, VK paid me a visit on my day off, informing me of an incident at Glenville State Prison resulting in Bowden Teague's death. Despite Teague's manipulation leading to a lighter sentence, his demise in prison remained shrouded in mystery. Rumors suggested retribution from a Central American gang for Teague's past misdeeds. When the sheriff asked VK to investigate, he tactfully navigated the situation, hinting at his silence regarding any potential findings to his boss. The family might face serious charges of conspiracy to commit murder, which could lead to a costly legal battle. However, it's crucial to note that this accusation might merely be a rumor circulating in the prison yard. Even if there's truth to the story, the individual who informed the family about Teague's whereabouts isn't necessarily guilty of anything, as Teague's imprisonment is widely known. When I mentioned overhearing his father quoting PA's parables, VK, visibly surprised, understood the implications. Expressing my gratitude for his friendship, VK warmly acknowledged our mutual understanding, affirming Letty's choice in me. In the weeks following the incident, Letty and I attempted intimacy several times, but my emotional turmoil hindered my performance, leaving me disheartened. Misinterpreting my struggles, Letty's tears only added to my distress. Seeking help, I consulted a doctor who, after physical examination, referred me to psychologist Meadowzana. Meadows' approach, infused with humor and grounded wisdom, resonated with me. Through regular sessions, she helped me manage my anger and gradually regain functionality, though intimacy with Letty remained awkward. Recognizing the need for couples counseling, Letty and I embarked on sessions with Meadow. During counseling, I expressed my desire to rebuild trust and overcome feelings of betrayal, while Letty candidly questioned her own judgment. Meadows' lighthearted approach broke the tension, fostering laughter and easing our communication. Despite the challenges, Meadows' effective guidance brought moments of relaxation and connection between Letty and me, offering a glimmer of hope amid our difficulties. I often wonder how much more challenging it would have been if Leigh had arrived at Teague's hotel room just a few minutes earlier. I'm grateful every day that I intervened when I did. Initially, our therapy sessions felt like going in circles. What troubled me most was Letty's apparent arousal at the prospect of being exploited by someone she disliked. Exploring the reasons behind her reactions led me to dark places. Despite Leigh's repeated denials of arousal, it was evident physically, which frustrated me deeply. Meadow and I discussed the importance of individual sessions, focusing on my biggest concern. During the fourth session, Meadow, tired of Letty's denials, skillfully prompted her to admit her arousal, which brought Letty to tears. Meadow then spent the rest of the session exploring how Letty's arousal affected me. For the first time, I felt Letty truly grasp the depth of my emotions and self-doubt. She left that session with a determination to help me understand her behavior and regain faith in myself. Subsequent sessions focused solely on Leigh and Meadow for a month. When we resumed couples counseling, Meadow surprised me with her first question, revisiting the terms of the bet and asking if I desired a similar arrangement with Letty in the future. I addressed Letty directly, expressing my desire for such an arrangement, albeit without the illicit elements. I candidly shared my feelings, questioning how she could be unaware of them. Leigh, visibly shocked and embarrassed, cited her conservative upbringing but remained silent. Sensing her discomfort, Meadow urged honesty, prompting Leigh to reveal a traumatic incident involving her parents' relationship, which deeply impacted her perception of female sexuality. This revelation was startling, shedding light on Leigh's struggles with her powerful libido. I'm certain I inherited it from my mother. Meadow made me complete a survey, and based on my responses, it's clear that it's at the top of my list. She turned to our therapist. What were the results? Meow replied, Letty is more than 2 standard deviations above the mean at 95%. Her self-reported libido is higher than that of 97% of all women. Letty nodded and confessed, I've been concealing and suppressing this aspect of myself from you for years, and I did so for 2 reasons. Firstly, I feared you would see in me a reflection of my mother, a woman whose desires outweighed her commitment to family duty. Secondly, I dreaded unleashing the beast within me. I was afraid that giving in to my passion would consume me. So, I suppressed it to maintain control. After a long pause, Meadow calmly remarked, You need to continue, Letty. You should discuss your arousal on that day. You know how much Andy was hurt during our previous session. You must be as honest as possible. Letty spoke up, after losing my last bet with Bowden, which involved both illegal substances and my virtue, I expected to feel horrified and terrified, but instead, I felt a surge of excitement. I was aroused all day. It had nothing to do with Bowden, I found him repulsive. It wasn't about infidelity, I had no desire to cheat on you, and I was fully satisfied with you. What intrigued me was the idea of doing something I couldn't acknowledge to myself. The idea of being compelled to do it felt strangely freeing. It wasn't about Bowden, I wasn't betraying you. It was about the possibility of releasing the beast within me without feeling guilty. I was eager to explore what it felt like. I looked at Meadow, puzzled. Is this real? Is Letty actually willing to be coerced into sexual acts to avoid guilt? It sounds like something out of a novel. It is real, Meadow replied. A promiscuous woman is someone who has many sexual partners. Women with high libidos often struggle to reconcile their sexual desires with societal expectations regarding sexual behavior. This leads to various coping mechanisms. Firstly, women with high libidos often hide their sexuality. Secondly, they seek psychological justifications for their sexual behaviors. For instance, the prevalence of drunk sex among college students is one way women rationalize their strong libido. If they were intoxicated, they can tell themselves, I'm not promiscuous, I was just drunk. In Letty's case, she claimed that being coerced gave her a sense of liberation. She can tell herself, I'm not a woman of loose morals who chose this willingly, I was forced, so I let loose. But this is a form of rationalization. In reality, she chose to surrender her agency, as if I were a particularly foolish student. Andy, you questioned if it was real, not whether it made sense or was rational. I know this may sound bizarre to you, but avoiding guilt by externalizing your locus of control is surprisingly common. It's believed to be one reason why submissive sexual behavior appeals to a significant portion of the population, Meadow added. I pondered for a moment, then turned to Meadow. Do you trust Letty? Meadow replied, Letty and I have extensively discussed this matter, and I am thoroughly convinced of her sincerity. Moreover, I don't believe she has any hidden motives beyond what she has expressed. However, my opinion doesn't matter here. It's something you need to decide for yourself. Letty looked at me anxiously, waiting for my response. Both she and Meadow seemed puzzled as I remained silent. Was there something you wanted to ask me? I inquired, addressing Meadow. For several sessions, you've been asking Letty to explain her excitement about going to the hotel with TIG. She just did. Do you accept her explanation? That's all, Meadow clarified. As Dad pointed out, these were the facts. Did I believe Letty and Meadow? I turned to Letty directly. Letty, when we got married, I made a vow to remain faithful to you for life. No one forced me, I chose to do it because I love you. You've always been incredible, beautiful, and alluring. Even though we got a little wild when I made that vow, I respected your desire to walk down the aisle as a virgin. I knew I had a high libido, and I was worried that yours might not match mine. But when I saw you let go at times, I hoped and prayed we'd be on the same page. I took that as a sign that your sexual passion might match mine. I walked down the aisle envisioning a lifetime of sexual adventures with you. And when we finally made love, there were no disappointments. You weren't timid, you enjoyed receiving pleasure from me. With every moment in bed, you showed me you loved me with your whole being. But throughout our marriage, you kept something from me. I didn't strive to fulfill what I knew you desired. You resisted trying new things, you wouldn't let us progress. I couldn't understand why. This made me doubt myself. Your high libido doesn't bother, offend, or unsettle me, it brings me joy. What bothers me is that you have a strong libido that you're unwilling to fully share with me. I still don't see why sex is harmful for married couples, to be honest. Your father preached on this before he left the ministry. He said that married couples' bodies belong to each other. I can't remember the exact verse, but it was biblical. Married couples should give themselves to each other. They should satisfy each other's desires to prevent straying from their vows. Letty interjected, Corinthians, it's from Corinthians. I nodded, I'll take your word for it. I'm not a Bible scholar. But I think I understand what your father meant. God gave us sex and marriage for comfort. As long as it's within a lawful marriage, what spouses do in bed, willingly, doesn't offend God. If it's not wrong in God's eyes and brings us comfort, why shy away from it? Help me understand. Why do we avoid finding comfort in each other? If letting me take the lead in sexual matters eases your guilt, I'm more than willing to do so. I'll take it. I'll shoulder the blame, like I said before. Absolutely, all day, every day. There's no fear, disgust, doubt, or hesitance from me when it comes to sex. I only asked for honesty from you. We've chosen to be lifelong partners, and I believe I deserve nothing less than the truth, I expressed, reaffirming my stance. Passion surged within me, a blazing fire igniting. Glancing at Meadow, I sought her reaction, finding reassurance in her expression. However, Meadow interjected, Andy, you haven't answered the question. Do you accept her explanation? Turning to Letty, I responded, Letty, your explanation asks me to acknowledge three things. First, that you had no desire for Bowden sexually. I accept this wholeheartedly, I affirmed, sensing her relief. Second, that you weren't disappointed in me and had no intention of cheating. I believe in this too, I added, noting her gratitude. Third, that your arousal stemmed from repressing your high libido and the prospect of being sexually enslaved. I completely disagree with this, I declared inwardly. Letty's expression turned to horror as tears welled in her eyes. Meadow appeared equally dismayed. Agreeing to such an assertion without evidence would be foolish. What kind of fool do you take me for? I challenged. After a moment of reflection, I continued, your claims need verification. I need proof. Show me that your statement holds true. Meadow burst into laughter, followed by Letty, who eventually grasped my point. We negotiated for about 30 minutes, with Letty making counteroffers and pleas. You're giving TIG 3 days. I'm asking for a full year, 365 days, to do as I please with you, I asserted. I'm at least 120 times more important to you than Bowden Teague. This is only fair, I reasoned. You need to be realistic, Andy, Letty countered. Let's focus on proving that giving someone power over your sexuality arouses you. Constantly negotiating to prevent me from taking control weakens your argument, I countered, noticing Meadow's amusement. If she had popcorn, she'd be enjoying it right now. Letty posed the question, so, what exactly are you proposing? Are you asking me to agree to 365 days under your control? Do you promise that after this, you'll acknowledge that I'm telling the truth? Let's be precise. I want to use inductive reasoning to verify your statement's truthfulness. We'll conduct multiple observations under various circumstances to ensure a consistent outcome. Your obedience will determine your stance on my authority in this matter. If your claims hold true, I anticipate seeing 365 days of prompt and complete submission. Immediate and unwavering compliance means you'll do as I say, without hesitation or compromise. I expect you to commit fully for a year. If you can do this, I'll believe you. Her clenched jaw signaled uncertainty, making me worry I'd overplayed my hand, turning tactical success into strategic loss. She inquired, how long do I have to consider your proposition? I assured her, you'll have ample time to think it over. At Meadow's request, we continued the session alone. As they exited, Meadow flashed a reassuring smile. 3 days later, returning home from shopping, I found Letty at the kitchen table, nursing 2 glasses of Chardonnay and tending to a bandaged wrist. She explained, revealing jump or die etched on her skin, I'm ready to do this for you. As I understand it, I'm yours to command for the next 365 days. I won't refuse you for any reason. As long as it stays between us, I'm all in. Nobody else is involved. We don't talk about it. Remember what I mentioned the other night? This is implicit. You're mine, and I'm not sharing. She raised her wrist, declaring, I ride or die. Following her lead to the bedroom, I noticed her excitement. Over the ensuing year, hardly a day passed without intimacy. I ensured we engaged daily, respecting her vow to never deny me. It was crucial to honor her feelings, making the arrangement smoother. Initially hesitant, Letty took time to acclimate to what she termed full access. Overcoming psychological barriers was key. Reflecting on our initial success, her voice grew hoarse from ecstatic moans. Discovering these possibilities, she embraced her sexuality fully. Within 6 months, we fulfilled my entire wish list. To my surprise, Letty encouraged pushing boundaries further. Seeking Meadow's guidance, I received a comprehensive list of activities, many unfamiliar. Even a seasoned libertine would blush at my Google search history. She encouraged me to let Letty conduct her own research. I asked Letty to explore adult websites on the internet and send me links to stories she found intriguing. Together, we compiled a list of 12 things to experiment with. Meadow offered valuable guidance when she handed me her list, advising, remember, what excites her, what she wants to do, and what she's ready to do are 3 different lists. Just because something turns her on doesn't mean she wants to try it, and even if she does, it doesn't guarantee she will. Understand? Many women fantasize about various sexual experiences they wouldn't actually consider. Just because something arouses Letty doesn't mean she desires it. If you decide to explore this deeply, don't overanalyze her desires. Simply embrace them and use them to please her. I know Letty well enough to know that ultimately, you're the one she truly cares about. Keep that in mind. Later that week, I encouraged Letty to act out scenarios. She felt embarrassed by her response, fearing I'd misconstrue her as promiscuous. I reassured her, sharing Meadow's advice and affirming I had no intention of delving too deeply into her desires. Despite her initial apprehension, she chose to trust me. Over time, I realized I wasn't envious. Using Meadows' suggestions, Letty became more forthcoming about her turn-ons. We explored things most couples wouldn't dare, finding enjoyment and uncovering unexpected twists in her preferences. One day, I proposed something almost unusual. I wasn't keen on it, but Letty was thrilled. She was visibly excited, later pondering, where did that come from? I doubt you'd find another woman who'd enjoy it as much. Initially jesting, her expression turned thoughtful. I wouldn't have tried it without your desire and seeing my reaction. Remember what I said in Meadows' office? Today, I feel justified in enjoying myself without guilt. I agreed. It was an incredible year. Our sexual connection flourished, and Letty bloomed like the first rose of spring. Even in moments of past insecurity, I noticed her playing with the tattoo, drawing courage and determination from it. Sexual exploration, submission, and daily intimacy fulfilled her. For the first time since we met, she didn't have a single week of disappointment in the entire year. She grew happier, less irritable, and significantly less anxious, bolstered by the knowledge of my unconditional love and acceptance. For me, daily intimacy was pure bliss, boosting my confidence and demeanor, even in my negotiations at the gun shop. I abandoned the stern facade and adopted a more approachable demeanor, finding that customers responded positively to genuine negotiations. As the saying goes, confidence truly does aid in negotiations. I was thriving at work, with our store achieving financial success. Despite receiving tempting buyout offers from other retailers in our state, I chose to remain loyal to my staff and company. Although I kept these offers confidential, somehow the news leaked. One afternoon, J.D. Butler, the county commissioner, walked into my store and acknowledged my decision to turn down a buyout offer from J. Crown Tactical. He praised my dedication to the community and expressed pride in my commitment to our district's future. J.D. then proposed a business arrangement for the redevelopment of the remaining businesses on the county's Main Street. These antique buildings, with their historic charm, were envisioned as the perfect setting for revitalization. Tyler Jade, a skilled chef tired of city life, planned to open a farm-to-table restaurant, tapping into the trend of urbanites seeking a taste of rural living. Lonnie, the owner of Lonnie's Barbecue, intended to relocate nearby and open a high-end coffee, bakery, and ice cream shop with his niece. J.D. suggested relocating my business to the old Farmers Bank building, where we could display our firearms collection, attracting tourists visiting the area. Initially hesitant due to the advantage of our current location's low overhead, I recognized the potential benefits of relocating to a more centralized spot with better visibility and parking, potentially attracting more visitors. When Jacob gave me a tour of the historic bank building, I was sold on the idea. The solid stone structure exuded stability, with brass fittings and a functional cash register adding to its allure. The county had taken possession of the bank due to unpaid taxes, and I had the opportunity to purchase it for the amount owed. Agreeing to operate a store there for 10 years would result in a tax of 30% of the building's assessed value. After discussing it with Letty, my staff, and siblings, and securing a loan from my sister against her future trust fund, I made the decision to buy the building and relocate my store. It turned out to be a highly successful business move. As part of our commitment to improving honesty and transparency in our relationship, Letty and I engaged in what Meadow refers to as trust work, where we openly discussed our thoughts and feelings each evening. This helped us address any discomfort or concerns we had. On Black Friday, I gave my staff the day off so they could spend more time with their families for Thanksgiving. While I was alone in the store, Florence Benson, an old school friend, stopped by to catch up. Florence, once a shy blonde, had blossomed into a stunning woman with a successful career in musical theater. Despite her tempting proposition for a discreet encounter, I respectfully declined, resisting the temptation despite her allure and flattering interest in me. Knowing that I'd soon have to answer a question about whether I had been tempted that day, I closed the business after Florence left, drove home, and immediately told Letty everything that had transpired. To my surprise, instead of reacting with anger or jealousy, she was relieved and reassured by my decision, trying her best to convince me that I had made the right choice. Letty had been persistent and demanding all week, trying hard to achieve a certain goal, but I was too exhausted to comply. When she returned from a business trip to Atlanta 4 months later, she shared an encounter with Wade Banks, an account manager from the external audit organization. Despite feeling tempted by his advances, she ultimately refused, motivated by our commitment to honesty and our relationship. Inspired by our honesty and determination, I chose to reward her for making the right decision rather than feeling jealous or resentful. Our openness about difficult issues and our shared commitment to resisting temptation strengthened our bond, especially after the disagreement with TIG. I eventually sold my father's vintage ski boat to VK, who quickly became enamored with it. Using the money from the sale, I treated Letty and myself to our second Disney honeymoon, fulfilling one of her lifelong dreams. As our year together came to an end, we celebrated with a special dinner in Atlanta. During our conversation, Letty expressed her gratitude for the transformative year we had shared, indicating that she felt she had won the biggest bet of her life. She suggested continuing our journey together, asking what new bet we could make to keep moving forward. Thanks for watching and have a great day. Write your opinion in the comments. Remember, you're writing a story too, and it's up to you whether it's a good one or not.